So outside they're absolutely mouth-wateringly delicious and probably for me one of the best dishes on the planet, there are 3 things that make this ragu à la bolognese so special. First, it's almost foolproof and easy to make. Second, you can impress any Italian with it, because this is a very old recipe from the Marche region in the Middle East of Italy. And third, you learn all the fundamentals about praising.
I'm pretty sure everyone had bolognese before, but do you know the origin of this dish? Back in the days you just ate what you got from hunting or fishing, so you can use every meat or fish in this dish. You threw everything into a pot and just waited until it's soft and tender. There are just some things you have to understand when praising meat, so let's break this down.
1. Sear the seasoned meat and set it aside. 2. Brown and sweat a vegetable to create a stronger flavor. 3. Add the praising liquid like red wine to the meat. 4. Fill up the pot with meat stock. 5. Bring the liquid to a simmer to tender the beef. 6. Reduce the sauce to deepen the flavor. 7. Season with salt, pepper and soft herbs.
And before all these points you have to make a superb beef broth.
For this you need a lot of bones. This will make the broth really flavorful and gives depth to our dish.
This won't be a classic tomato sauce. This is a ragu after all, keep it in mind.
First thing is to wash the meat and bones in a sink. You do this to get rid of the blood and scum. Give it a nice rub, but be careful so you don't cut yourself at the bones. Once that is done, you're gonna put them into a big pot. And yeah guys, I learned from my mistake and I got a really big pot. So we don't have the same problem like some weeks ago when I prepared the tonkotsu stock. We need vegetables. Classic for this broth are celery, carrots, leek and onions. I also use stick celery. Let me give you a little tip. You take a semi-sharp knife and then you can remove these woody strings with ease. Add a bouquet garni out of 3 bay leaves, a bunch of parsley, thyme and rosemary to the pot. To season, add peppercorns and juniper berries. Fill this whole pot up with cold water. Just make sure everything is covered and submerged. Put it on a stove plate and then bring it to a boil. Cook for at least 4 hours.
You can use the meat on the bones as well, so just give it into a soup or make a chili meat salad.
For this recipe I'm gonna use short ribs, shin slices and pork neck. The next step is to wash the meat and then you will use a kitchen towel to pat it dry. Once that is done you will salt the beef and pork pieces, but make sure to cover the meat completely with salt. Use a lot of salt and let it sit until we prepare our vegetable for the ragu. We're gonna make a standard pruneau, which is just 1 part of stick celery to 1 part of carrots and 2 parts of small diced onions. Just beautiful fine cubes. We are going to pour oil into a big pot or roasting pan and get it to very high heat. Our goal is to get the meat golden brown on all sides, which will help us to develop a complexer flavor. You can fry it one after another. Now look at this color. I wish you could smell this right now. Can you see these brown spots on the bottom of the pan? This is all flavor. Once they are close before browning, remove the meat and reduce the heat to medium. Back to the pot, we're gonna add onions and garlic. Get them beautiful brown as well. Stir constantly so they don't burn.
A huge game changer I learned in Italy is the pancetta. You will create a more intense umami flavor. You have the tomato, you have the pecorino, you have the pancetta, and all comes together in this one dish. You have to try this.
After that we're gonna put in the tomato paste and sweat it for 3 more minutes to bring out all the flavor. Optional, you can cut the sourness with some sugar. Add the pruneaux of the stick celery and carrots. Now let it sweat for 5 more minutes. Get it dark brown but don't burn it.
Italian red wine is a must for this dish and you have to use a dry one. Sweet wines you only use in desserts.
Pour in a lot of the praising liquid so you can scrape off all this flavor from the bottom of the pot. When you have this done, you can see the red wine just starting to thicken up a little. This is because of the starch in the vegetables, which is also important for the right consistency of the sauce. Add 500 milliliters of tomato passata to the pot. This adds fruitiness and sourness to the ragu. Because this isn't a tomato sauce, I'm gonna add 500 milliliters of beef broth. Stir everything and mix it up. It's time to put all the meat into our sauce and try to get as much meat covered as possible. You will let this cook for 3 to 4 hours depending on how big your meat chunks are. Also, you're gonna flip the meat every 30 minutes. After this process, all the meat will get super tender and juicy. You can just tear it apart with 2 forks. Guys, this is a delight.
Of course we need pasta for this dish, and don't be scared, it's super easy to make.
Take 4 eggs and lightly whisk them with a fork together. Since these eggs are so small, I will also add 1 egg yolk to the dough. Then I'm gonna put soft semolina flour and 00 flour together. 00 flour is a super fine white flour from Italy. There are different types of 00 flour depending on what you want to use them for. Pasta or pizza. Pizza requires a higher gluten content.
But for the pasta we will use a slightly lower gluten content, so the dough is more responsive and won't break apart.
Start by adding a pinch of salt to the flour, and then we will start to make a small dent into the flour mixture. Beat up the eggs and into the dent. We're going to bring the flour and eggs with a fork together. Once it is done, you have to work on the dough with your hands. Knead it together until it's combined. Onto the bench and knead it for 8 minutes. You must really merge the ingredients together until they form a smooth dough. If you feel that it might be too sticky, add more flour. Wrap in plastic wrap and let it rest for 30 minutes. This step is also important so you can easily process the dough. In this time we can set up the noodle machine. Once your dough has rested, you're gonna take it out from the plastic wrap, press it down and roll it with a rolling pin. You don't want the dough to stick to the pasta machine, so flour it. Pasta goes through the lowest settings and the dough will start to make an oblong shape. To prevent it from doing this is easy. Just fold the top third and the bottom third over that. Between every step, give some flour over the machine and pasta. Repeat these steps until you get your optional thickness. Now you just have to cut the pasta. You can do this with a simple pasta cutter on your noodle machine or cut it with a sharp knife.
Now that's this beautiful tagliatelle with a pinch of flour. But before we cook it, let's go back to the bolognese.
After 3 hours, it will look like this. You can see the meat is super tender and how the meat just fall off the bones. Take it out of the pot and break it apart. Take 2 forks and make delicious strips of meat. Guys, I love this part. Remove every piece of the meat from the bones and get these meaty strips back into the pot. Then stir everything up and cover it with this unbelievable sauce. Season the ragu with oregano, parsley, and if you want some fresh basil, some fresh grounded pepper and salt. Milk will give the sauce creaminess, which helps the sauce to get complete. The last step is to cook the pasta, and for fresh pasta this is only a matter of seconds. I will cook it for max 2 minutes. The sauce will thicken up because of the pasta water. We give in our superb ragu a la bolognese. Give it a little shake so the pasta is all covered. Onto a white plate and finish with pecorino cheese.
I have to say this dish is definitely one of my favorites. It's creamy, it's flavorful, the pasta is perfectly cooked. But the best thing is, it's super easy to make. You just have to give it a go and send me a picture on Instagram or on Twitter. So I hope you could enjoy it and I see you in the next video. Bye. And before all these points you make to...